And there we go. Welcome to Sundays with Dracula. Welcome, Dracuphiles. Welcome to my house. Enter freely and of your own will. This is chapter 26 of Sundays with Dracula. I am Edward G. Pettit of the Rosenbach in Philadelphia, the home of Bram Stoker's Notes for Dracula. Over 100 pages of outlines, early plot ideas, and research notes compiled by the author over the 7 years he developed and wrote the book. It is an extraordinary record of the conception and development of a novel. We will definitely see a couple things from Stoker's notes today. And joining me today as co-host for our last go-around, Tucker, for Dracula, is our musical director, Tucker Christine.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
And I'm great. And I want to hear all about your everybody wants to hear all about your Dracula Beyond Stoker project, and we'll hit that in a little bit, because also joining me today for the first part of the show is my wife, Kate, Super Wife. If you follow me on Facebook, you'll know her as Super Wife. She was with us on the on my birthday show for the Orson Welles Dracula radio play. So I thought today, I thought today you could come back and you can let us know what you thought of that.
Okay.
Good. So, yeah. I mean, and it was the first time you had ever, heard that play. So
yes.
It's, I love getting those perspectives. So that should be fun. But first, before we hit any of that, a word about today's cocktail and our drink sponsor, Tamworth Distilling. It is Eau de Musk. That's right. Eau de Musk, everyone. And the drink is going to be a variation of an old fashioned, which I actually have to make live on the air because I've been like in the screaming rush to get everything done today. And I didn't have time to make the drink ahead of time. But Eau de Musk is a whiskey that proudly features an old world flavoring technique that uses the oil extract from the castor gland of the North American beaver. Yes, castoreum. It is a castoreum flavored whiskey. That's why the little beaver is on there. If you think that's really gross, just so you know, castoreum has long been used in a lot of different food products. Not as much anymore, but it used to be, especially you'd find it in ice cream and gum as a substitute for a natural flavoring for vanilla. And I've read that in a couple places, and I'm thinking, well, the natural flavoring for vanilla should be vanilla, but castoreum was often used as a replacement. And this is a 2-year aged bourbon with the castoreum, but also the addition of birch oil, raspberry, and Canadian snake root, which is a woody spice akin to ginger. It is absolutely delicious. Tucker, have you had this?
I have, yeah. I frequent Art in the Age, so
yeah. I am going to make with it. I would normally drink this straight, but I thought I would make a cocktail for today and give it a name, which would be nice. And I'm just going to make an old fashioned out of it. I didn't want to do too much. I had too many different things to change the flavor of the whiskey. I really want to taste this whiskey. I mean, I have tasted it. It's really good. And I've been so good. Look, there's hardly anything out of there. I've been waiting for the show to really drink it. So for your old fashioned, put a little sugar in there. You can use simple syrup too, but I thought I would use regular sugar today. And it's organic sugar. So it's a little heavier and thicker, and it's got a nicer taste to it. And then I put some bitters on there. I use the Peugeot bitters today, and I'll stir that up. And I meant to do that in the bigger glass, but I didn't. And then I am going to pour my whiskey onto it. And I'm going to pour it into you. Give it a little stir. I'll pour it into the big cup. Now, I love sugar. It's like my excuse to have sugar and booze, right? And I'll pour a little ice in there. I am so psyched. I used to have to go downstairs and do all this, like get an ice bucket and pack some ice and bring it up and do all this stuff. For my birthday, one of the gifts I got was a portable. You have one of these, Tucker? A portable.
I do not.
And it's right over here. It's so unbelievably convenient. I can just have ice made fresh up here all the time. So let's pour this into here. I'll use a little garnish. I'll put some blood orange on there because it's blood orange in Dracula. And let's make sure that this is the right, I think it's the right amount. It's probably too much sugar, but well, there's no too much sugar. That doesn't exist. But when you're making this, you might want to eat less sugar than I do. Oh, wow. And it's completely, it's so different than the normal whiskey. It's this perfume is coming right at me. Obviously, it's the Castoreum.
Let me taste.
You're gonna hate it. Okay. She doesn't like whiskey, so
I still want to taste it.
You have to pretend that you love it. You have to be like, "Oh my gosh, this is the greatest old-fashioned made with eau de musc I've ever had in my life."
Actually, I do like it.
Ooh,
yeah.
There we go. Well done, Tamworth.
Yeah.
Even the non-whiskey drinkers are enjoying this.
Yeah, that's very nice. Warm you up for sure inside. Yes. That'll warm you up.
Well, I am calling this drink in honor of today's chapter. I am calling this drink Darkly Mina, to honor Mina, who really takes charge of the vampire hunting mission in this chapter. And oddly enough, I kept coming across the word dark, and I don't know if it's used more than other chapters, but 7 times dark gets used in this chapter, and it just seemed to be the word that was coming out of Stoker that he couldn't stop. So Darkly Mina is this drink. You can buy Eau de Musc online or at Art in the Age in Philadelphia. I want to thank Tamworth and Art in the Age for assisting me with today's cocktail. So, all right, before we get into the chapter today, I want to talk a little bit about the Orson Welles Mercury Theater adaptation of Dracula, which is something I've always loved, but I hadn't heard it in a few years. And I thought, boy, what a great way to spend my birthday would be to listen to that. And then I would invite all of you, and about 50 of you came, which was really great on Thursday night. And we listened to it live, and then I brought some of you on to talk a bit about it and all. And my wife was here, and I'm so busy bringing some of the audience on to talk, I didn't say, Kate,
yeah,
what did you think of Orson Welles' Dracula?
I had an initial reaction of hooray, Mina at the end. That was awesome. But then as I thought about it more, I saw basically that there were 4 main things that were different in Orson Welles' radio play than there are in the book. And 3 of them are omissions. And then the one is the, surprise conclusion. So the omissions that I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, because I don't know the book as well as all of you do. I have read the book, but I have not
and we've been
pulled
immersed,
it apart.
We've been immersed in it for 26 weeks, right?
So correct me if I'm wrong. And I wrote notes because I'm a little nervous and I forget stuff sometimes. So I have to put my
never forget anything.
I have to put my glasses on so I can read my little notes.
Brain like an elephant.
So, so I guess the significant omissions that I saw were Jonathan's Transylvanian orgy with with the brides, with Dracula's brides, and Lucy's Mercy rape murder, and then Renfield, who really I never liked in Dracula. I thought, what is this character even doing here? It's like stupid, disgusting character. And when I look at it a little more,
take it easy, audience. She doesn't like Renfield.
Sorry, I don't like Renfield. I just think he's just gross, and they're almost for comic relief. And really, I think I see Renfield as a mechanic to tell us more about the Doctor and like involve and give us a deeper analysis of his character. But that's my view. That's just one person's view. So these 3 things, I think, being omitted.
We did have the staking of Lucy. that happens.
But it wasn't nearly
No,
as,
it wasn't as big.
It was not the,
because that was even the sound effect that we got, of the staking sound effect we got with Lucy in it. So,
but it wasn't.
not like it is in the book when
No, it's not the
Arthur's
rape murder.
raising his hammer like Thor, and it's
Yeah.
you know, it's really creepy in the book.
So I think those three main shifts changes for me how I even viewed the whole story. Like the story in the book, I see there's a lot of physical lust and physical attraction and repulsion, and there's a lot of sexual overtones and undertones going on, but omitting these super physical events that happen in the book, omitting that in the radio play, takes it away from the physical and makes the victim and attacker relationship more, or predator relationship, much deeper, and makes it so much stronger. And when Mina at the end, I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this for anyone, but the surprise ending of Mina taking control and killing her predator, her torturer, is like, yay, hooray for women. But more than that, the way Orson Welles has framed this makes it like the triumph of victims, male or female, because she doesn't see this as like a physical thing. She's hearing him call all the creatures, with the addition of the, monologue that Orson has there.
He gets a death. He gives himself a death scene. And if you haven't listened to these yet, go online and listen to it. It's tremendous. But at the end, when Arthur or when Jonathan is going to kill Dracula, Mina's just, and he doesn't do it. He can't. And Mina's, give me that steak, and she does it herself, which is really awesome. Tucker, what did you think? And especially with Renfield not being there.
I don't feel that he's missed. It's odd because I really, unlike Kate, I do like Renfield, but he's not missed. It's done in such a way that he's not needed. And if you didn't know he was supposed to,
20 minutes to put him in,
Yeah. If you didn't know he was supposed to be there, it doesn't matter,
Yeah, and radio play, this kind of drama, it's an hour long, and it runs by quickly, and in that super condensed form, you're going to have to. Now, Arthur and Seward get combined, so it's Arthur Seward, who is Lucy's fiance, but I found that I didn't miss Renfield because of the story, right? Because it was nice and condensed a version of it. What else? What did you take away from it, Tucker? What do you especially like about it, or?
I really, really like the speech that he gives himself at the end. I like especially the line "guilt of my guilt." I don't know why that sticks with me, but I just love when he says that. It gives. I mean, I really. In future adaptations, I don't like when they make Dracula sympathetic, but I feel that one line makes him a little bit sympathetic.
Yeah,
it makes him looking for peace, I think, and the peace is delivered to him by Mina. And
is he asking her to kill him at that?
That's how I read it, and
it doesn't really make the case either way.
But I had forgotten about that line. It'd been almost 10 years since I heard it, and I'd forgotten about it, and it blew me away.
It's interesting that you saw that line, the guilt of my guilt, that way, because I felt almost the opposite of that. The guilt of my guilt, you are as complicit as I, sort of. So I thought that would that's like designed to pull a victim in and keep them trapped, that they can't rebel against, part of that Stockholm syndrome sort of thing in there.
Yeah, and I love the way he recycles the blood of my blood lines that you get once in the novel, and then he uses it as some kind of
mantra.
This incantation that he's doing to get power over her. And that final speech, he brings in all these other kind of witchy incantation things. He says it's claw, wing, tooth, scale, tissue of flesh, death of my death, dead and undead. I just love that part. The guilt and unguilt, guilt of my guilt is at another point, isn't it? But here it's he's also the hand of the living is over your master. Console me, my children. This instant is no longer than the space between two heartbeats, but the night is not here, and I am lonely. Come to your master, my children. Beguile him now in the instant of his peril. Beguile him with the sound of your names. Claw, wing, tooth, scale, tissue of flesh. Claw, wing, tooth, scale, tissue of flesh. It's a great way to end it. And then she stakes him.
But she doesn't stake him right away. They clip to, and this is what happened. And I was like, what? What do you mean this is what happened? He hasn't been killed yet. And then they drop the bomb that Mina was the one who did it. And that was so, because they leave us with her holding the stake and we don't know what she's going to do. So I thought that was brilliantly done. I loved that bit.
And also she's still in the trance at the point that she grabs the stake. So it kind of leaves it ambiguous. Did she break the trance? Was Dracula welcoming death by using the trance to finish him off? It's really a great piece of writing, I think.
Yeah, brilliant.
It is, and for all the talk that the Dracula as this kind of more romantic hero of modern times is, Wells is the first one that probably uses it in a Dracula adaptation. I mean, Lugosi is certainly seductive in a strange way, but this one it's almost like he's trying to convince Mina to love him and be with him, like leave your husband and come with me kind of thing. But again, to empower her at the end to be the one to destroy, as we all know needs to happen in this novel. Is really exciting. And Orson's only 23 years old.
Wow. It's incredible.
It's
amazing.
That's depressing. 23 he was doing this, 21 he's doing the big Macbeth, the all black cast Macbeth. At 25 he's making Citizen Kane. I'm like, I just turned 53. Oh man.
It's all right, honey. It's all right.
Hey, Stoker was 50 when he finished Dracula. So.
But he also published like 6 other books before it. So.
Yeah, but he didn't publish Dracula before it.
All right.
It's not a competition.
Well, I love this radio play. There's you can find out more Orson Welles on the radio, more of his radio shows on the online. That Indiana site has all of his radio programs. I think I don't remember if I sent Steve that link for that site, but it's Indiana. And Matt says I have a Zoom show. I'm fine. Yeah, Orson never had a Zoom show. Damn you. But yeah, there's a website that's got everything that he did on radio, and it's really exciting. And there's so many great radio plays that they did there it is, Steve put it in, that so many great radio plays that they got to do over the years. And I love Orson Welles, and all of his work is really exciting for me. So
yeah.
So thank you for joining us today,
Thank
Kate.
you.
It was very nice
Thanks,
to have
everybody.
you here. It's really the reason I get to do this show. So, if I didn't have, Kate's my Mina, and you all know in the novel how important, like without Mina, they're done. They're done. They're not really going to accomplish anything. So, thank you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
All righty.
All right.
I will see you later.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Kate.
And then Tucker and I will talk about this chapter. But first, Tucker, thanks, sweetie. I love you.
I love you.
First, Tucker, I love her, Tucker. That wasn't for you. I do love you. Thank you. If I didn't love you before this 26 weeks, I certainly do now with everything you've done, which has been really great. but before we hit that, let's let me just say, before we talk about your project, I just want to remind everybody what we do here on Sundays with Dracula is illuminate, unravel, disentangle Bram Stoker's novel about bloodsuckers in the 1890s, one chapter at a time. And Bram Stoker's notes for Dracula are just one of the many gems of the Rosenbach's collections. You can go online. You can see some of our collection guides as well as our gallery gateways of past exhibitions. We have a brand new digital exhibition up right now called I Am an American, about the life, activism, and poetry of Alice Dunbar Nelson. It is really exciting new exhibition we have up with all kinds of programs, just podcasts that go along with it that you can listen to. Some really wonderful stuff. And on tomorrow evening's Drac Chat, my Dracuphile guest will be Brian Toothpickings, who is in the chat today. I already see him chatting away. There's he also has a Toothpickings website in which he interviews people associated with vampire works and Dracula, and lots of fun vampire content that Brian's been putting on the internet for a few years now, I'm pretty sure. So I look forward to having Brian on with me tomorrow night for Drac Chat. But Tucker, what is this new thing that you have going on?
So in the chat a couple weeks ago, it was asked if there was a list of fiction where Dracula appears since the novel's been written.
Yeah. Non-movie just written. Yeah.
And you and I discussed it, and I think you put out calls to other people, and we could not find a comprehensive list. And so I decided to put one together. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been, every minute of free time I've got, I've been going on, and the first 50 or so were really easy because I just went through my shelves, you know. But after that, it's off to the Google machine, you know. So I got a database together of initially about 200 novels, a little over 100 short stories, and I'm right around 50 for children's books right now. And then I went and bought the domain name DraculaBeyondStoker.com, and I'm starting to put it up on a website so people can view it. And I put out a call for people to help me add to it by sending me in suggestions. I have not personally verified every single one that I found. So I also put out a call that if you think one's a mistake and shouldn't be on there, let me know and I'll look into it further, you know.
Yeah.
But you and I discussed it, and we set up criteria that it includes Dracula or any of the characters from the book, their descendants or other family members, Vlad as historical Vlad as a vampire, or Bram Stoker himself as either a vampire or a vampire hunter.
Yeah. So it was Bram Stoker, but not related to anything vampires. And who the heck is going to write a historical Bram Stoker novel or story that doesn't have to do with vampires anyway?
Shadow play.
No. Oh, is it? Yeah. I guess I still thought it was kind of involved in a way.
He's kind of in the background. He's kind of writing the book. But
yeah, that's what I thought.
I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know if I'm going to include it or not. It's really at the point that I'm in the book, it's really just in the background.
Well, this is great, and it's, you know, everybody, it's www.draculabeyondstoker.com. The link's in the chat, but you can go and find it online and look through it. And you have a contact on there for you then if people want to send submissions to you.
And to make it easy, it is just Tucker at DraculaBeyondStoker.com.
There you go.
So. And this project is costing me a lot of money as I'm finding stuff that I don't have.
Buying books. Yep. Yeah, it wasn't, you know, the goal of this wasn't how many more books do you want to buy? Should you buy? The goal was to put together a bibliography. So,
well, some of them, the text is not available online, so I have to buy it to verify it, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It's a difference between a collector and and an academic. So the academic doesn't bother to try to own everything. But come on, you have to have all this stuff. I understand that.
I did not know that half the horror movies had novelizations. That was something completely new to me.
Yeah. You mean like, Dracula movies?
Yep. There's a novelization of Prince of Darkness. There's a novelization of Scars of Dracula.
Wow.
And there's a third one too. I forget which one the third one is. Brides, I think.
I want to get those. So the Hammer ones have some novelizations.
Two of them are standalones, and one of them is in an omnibus.
Awesome. All righty. Well, more to read too, which is a lot of fun. Everyone, I also want to let you know that there will be an announcement today. I'll wait till mid-break to let you know what our next biblio venture will be. What book are we all going to be gathering together on Sundays to talk about after Dracula? So I'll tell you about that at mid-break today. So yeah, I'm going to make you wait even longer. There was a lot of so I'm sure you all talk about it in the chat, but there was a lot of chat. There was a lot of talk online about what it's going to be, and I'll mention it I'll at the break. So there you go. Are we ready? Let's get to chapter 26. Yeah. It's actually a long chapter. It's one of the longest chapters in the book. It's over 7,000 words. And usually the chapters come in between that like 5,500 to like maybe 6,300 kind of range, somewhere around there. And this one's rather long.
I was actually doing the math this morning. The average is 6,000.
The average chapter length is 6,000. There you go. So
this one is 71, and next week is a little over 8,000.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize the last chapter was that long. But yeah, so we'll have a lot to do next week. And next week I will have no co-host because Sir Christopher Frayling will be here. And we will talk about, and I'll talk about the last chapter with him. I'm very excited to do that. And I wanted to have as much opportunity to have him talk, throughout the show. So I decided to fly solo in a sense. So, but I'm not solo because I have Sir Christopher Frayling. Like how can anything possibly go wrong? I'll just say, so what do you think of this? And I'm certain he could talk for a half hour on pretty much every paragraph in the chapter. So that'll be a lot of fun to finish it up. But for this chapter, when last we left in chapter 25, our vampire hunting team had learned that Dracula had taken his ship not to Varna, which is where it was supposed to be going to, but Galatz, and they are preparing to pursue him there. But I'm actually going to kick off today with a manuscript page about which was supposed. There's a page that in Stoker's notes where it is chapter. It's one page, and on one side it's about chapter 26, a little rough outline of what he wants chapter 26 to be, and another rough outline of what he wants chapter 27 to be. I'll get to the chapter 27 next week, but for the chapter 26 this week, let me share this page with you. And here it is. It's the chapter 26 up here. It's just Drac. I love that for Stoker, it's also Drac, that he uses Drac as a abbreviation for Dracula throughout his notes once he's come up with the name. But actually, let me flip this note around because the stationery it's used on really, I find very exciting because it is from the Stratford Hotel at Broad and Walnut Streets in Philadelphia. And there's a Stratford building there now. It's actually a different building. They've torn down the buildings and rebuilt them since then, but now it is the Bellevue For a time, it was the Stratford, or the Bellevue Stratford, the Stratford Bellevue combined. And that is also the hotel that in 1976, a convention of Legionnaires, the American Legionnaires group, went and all got some mysterious illness, and they dubbed it Legionnaire's disease. And I think like a dozen of them died of it or something before they could figure out what was going on. So in a sense, it's a plague hotel. A plague hotel was the hotel that that Stoker stayed at, the Stratford, on some of those North American tours that Henry Irving was making to the States. Again, 6 or 7 times, I think. It could even been more times that Irving toured North America for shows. And I can't remember Philadelphia. Somebody might know in the chat. I think it was 3 or 4 times he was in Philadelphia. One of them, he famously met Walt Whitman, or twice, I think. He hung out with Walt Whitman when he was here. But this notes were written on this note paper from the Stratford in Philadelphia. It's probably Stoker. Elizabeth says Stoker was in Philadelphia twice, 1890 and 1897. So 1890 was when he met Whitman. He would not have met Whitman a second time then, because Whitman was dead by 1897. So unless I'm wrong on that too, I don't know. But I think Whitman dies in 92. Whether or not Stoker wrote this note in Philadelphia is, who knows? He probably didn't, but you never know. He could have. It could have been towards the end when he was, still working on this, especially at the end of the book. But at least he took the paper from the hotel, which is what we all take hotel stationery and use it to write things up. So I wanted to share this for today because it's chapter 26. But actually, what's curious about this outline is this is all stuff that's already happened in the novel. Like at the very end of it, we'll get to like chapter 26, but it still might even be chapter 25 by the end of this. And it is, let me read this to you. It begins in Count's house. Now, so we've already done that. That's at least 2 chapters ago that we were at the Count's house. Art and Quincy destroying lairs. E and S, East and South. I think that is East and South, or is that? Yeah, Art and Quincy. Yeah, and then destroying lairs, East and South arrived just after. I'm wondering if that was initials, because that could be Seward, but there's no. Yeah, that wouldn't work, because then that would have to be Jonathan. So it must be East and South. Arrive. I'm just going to read it off the note that I have here. Of the transcription. Arrived just after telegram from Mina that Count has been seen coming from Carfax and going. First he had written east, but then he crossed it out and put south. In haste and showing signs of passion, determined to wait for him. His arrival, signs of escaping, takes, and then there's this is really jumbled here because he has a caret here to bring in this signs of escaping, and then here is doctor out by window is what Miller and 18 Basang have. Doctor out by window, signs of escaping, and then this is takes something, but it's really difficult to figure out what this is here. This is another thing that maybe we could crowdsource one of these days, post this on there and see if people can figure out this here. But we've had this scene. This was when they confront him, and Dracula escapes out the window. And then it has Art, Morris, and Seward. Art, and I think that might be Morris and Seward follow Van Helsing, Van H, and Jonathan go to the place direct. Dracula, it says, Drac goes through park. We follow others on two sides up Hampstead. They follow him through cemetery. So they have this whole chase scene that they don't have, that he later doesn't use in this chase for Dracula. Dracula leaves, they go out. Oh, he went over the wall. No chase. There's no, no meeting at any point. And then he has October 5, new place. So this is all different now, because at first there was going to be they begin in Count's house, and then he arrives, and then they chase him, and now he's going to have a new place here. See, it's in parentheses, new place, and that becomes evident what he means by new place by the rest of us, because he says, meet Van H and Harker on threshold, flees due east, cutting from sporting life, man hurt. So apparently then there was going to be maybe another cutting from a magazine. There was a magazine periodical called Sporting Life at the time, and it was going to be about a man who was hurt. So it's another clue, another thing that Dracula has done. And then it says Harker's diary, only 2 boxes, 1 missing. So that's what I think they mean by new place, where Dracula seeing Dracula and him fleeing them in the novel happens at the Piccadilly house. And they don't know where that final box is. In his original conception, there was going to be 2 boxes missing, and they were going to go to this new place, and then they were going to find that there was only 1 box there. So now it's 1 box missing. Stoker just, rightly condenses all this. Why have them hit 2 places? I'll just have them hit the 1 and make this ending a lot quicker. And then it's back to Mina, her sweetness, pity for him. I too may need pity sometime. And we had this happen in the book where she's, tells them to feel pity for Dracula because they may have to pity her and destroy her. And then it's, she hypnotized, sees him over watership. He is back to Transylvania. We follow Count for Varna ship. 1 found, goes before tide. Count's rage, mist, delay, has cleared river. So just the words he needs to put down to remember for the chase scene and what's going on. Count's rage, mist, delay, has cleared the river. So this is all really 2 chapters ago, I think. Or was it still in last chapter, Tucker? I don't remember, when they were still in London, or...
No, I think it's 2 chapters.
Yeah, it's 2 chapters ago. So he's already moved all this information earlier. He's been able to, I think, by writing, just physically sitting down and writing and pouring out these final few chapters of the novel, been able to condense much more than he had originally planned to do. So this was his original plan for chapter 26. Half of it gets wind up using in something like chapter 24 or whatever it was. And then the rest he doesn't need. Well, the 1 item or a couple items in it he doesn't need. Doesn't need to have them chase Dracula out on the Hampstead. And some of the earlier notes had him going and confronting him at a tomb that he was probably staying in. Maybe this tomb was the place where he had stashed his last coffin. And they confront him there. Here, there was some kind of maybe confrontation at Hampstead. There was a whole nother house that they were going to go to where he had stashed at least 1 box, if not 2 of them, and then taken the 1 out before they got there. So I love this note. And then next week we will see, and I love it especially because it's a Philadelphia note too. So we have Stoker's notes in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is right in his notes there. So and next week we'll share the flip side of this page, which will be chapter 27 and the exciting ways he thought to actually end the novel, which he then changed some for this. So there we go. So we're starting with notes today, and now we'll get into talking about the chapter. There was a question here from Melissa about novelizations. She's just wondering where she can find the Brides of Dracula novelization. So
I find everything on ABE.
Yeah,
Advanced Book Exchange. To me, that's the best resource.
Yeah.
I don't remember if they had any. I have not ordered it yet, so I have not found a copy that I find acceptable yet. So
and it's a matter of price. How expensive is it? What the condition is going to be, and so if you just want a reading copy, it can be fair and beat up, and it doesn't matter. But then even if you just want that, you don't want to pay too much, and it all. Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go in. So I get that. Well, this chapter starts on my birthday, chapter 26, Dr. Seward's Diary, 29 October. Do other people do this too, Tucker? When you're in a book or something or anywhere, when you see the date of your birth, do you always recognize that, like, hey, that's my birthday?
Usually.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not the only one who does that, right?
Anytime I see my birthday, it's a little. Yeah.
The date of your birth, you think, oh yeah, that's my birthday. There's something exciting about that. So I'm glad I'm not me. It's not just like, I was thinking, like, am I just really self-centered and think that, or do other people do too? So good. But this is 29 October. They have Seward has written this, not spoken it. He has to write, damn it, in the train from Varna to Galatz. And he talks about Mina. Mrs. Harker prepared herself for her hypnotic effort, and after a longer and more serious effort on the part of Van Helsing that has been usually necessary, she sank into the trance. So she's having it's changing. Putting her in the trance is changing, or her connecting to Dracula is changing. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how we're supposed to read this. We'll hit some more. So I want to talk about it more in a bit, but
so most of the annotated versions can't agree on what's happening there. And I think Claire, he almost completely dismisses it. Like it's almost nonsensical, but I think Stoker found it confusing also, because when he abridged it, every mention of that is gone. He completely cuts it out. It's like, I think probably by 1901 he just forgot why he had it in there and just said, this doesn't make sense, let's cut it out.
Yeah.
I don't know, have you ever read the abridged version?
No, not straight through. No.
This chapter in the abridged version is so tight and fast. It's really, I mean, as much of an adventure story as it is, it's like a movie in its pacing, and for the last 3 chapters or so.
For people who don't know, that the publishers wanted to put out a paperback version of Dracula. Was it 1901?
Yes.
1901, they put out a paperback version, and Stoker edited it himself. That for a smaller book in paperback, be a lot cheaper. The hardback cover cost six shillings, but the paperback cost 6 pennies. That was it. It's just 6 pence that it cost to buy. It's got an illustration on it on the front cover, but he cut about 20% of the text. And did it himself. And you've told me this, and I've heard from other people that it kind of moves pretty quickly.
So my opinion is this is the book you have to read the first time, but then anytime after that, I really think the abridged version might be, as far as pulp fiction goes, it's a better book.
Mm-hmm.
The main book is literature. The abridged version is pulp.
I always want more. So I'm like, I'm the person that reads Dickens, and people are like, oh my gosh, he goes on. I'm like, good. I want him to go on and on. Just go on and on for pages about some door or something like that. That's fine. I love all the extraneous words. So, well, they're having a harder time hypnotizing Mina. So maybe Dracula has interrupted the transmission. But we're not sure. We're going to hit this a couple times now, so we'll have longer to take care of it. Oh, I wanted to know too that they're on the train to pursue Dracula. He's on a ship, and they're on a train. So they're still using that thing. Like, they're using more modern means of transportation, modern technology to chase Dracula. along, so to combat him. And then what Mina says is, I can see nothing. We are still. There are no waves lapping. She hears the creak of oars and the rowlocks. A gun is fired somewhere. The echo of it seems far away. People are walking along. She hears change. There is a gleam of light. I can feel air blowing upon me. Now, I think we think that perhaps it was opened at that point, and Dracula was, let out of his. That's the moment that she got to see, the moment when he comes out of his box. And then it says, here she stopped. She had risen as if impulsively from where she lay on the sofa, raised both her hands, palms upwards, as if lifting a weight. And I love this detail here. Harker's hand instinctively closed around the hilt of his kukri. Jonathan's ready for action here. He is on a hair trigger. He's like, grabbing his knife. And suddenly she sat up, and as she opened her eyes, said sweetly, would none of you like a cup of tea? You must all be so tired. So Mina doesn't remember what goes on in these sessions of hypnosis. And she's just back to her regular life. What Van Helsing says, he's close to land. He has left his earth chest. He has yet to get on shore. He cannot achieve the land because the ship, he has to be carried on shore. Or it has to be at night where he can change his form so he can jump or fly on shore as he did at Whitby. But at Whitby, he can jump off he could have jumped off the boat as himself at Whitby because it's literally on the beach,
literally on the shore.
So, but at night, he says it needs to be at night for him to change his form. That's what he's saying here. We'll get some mix up from Van Helsing too in this chapter. He seems to be making guesses, and they seem to not quite line up with other things that he said. But again, this continues. The hypnotic stage is even longer in coming before. All is dark. There's one of those darks. All is dark. I hear lapping water level with me, some creaking as of wood on wood. So it's just the same thing, but they're mentioning that she's, her is changing. The way that she goes under in the trance is different now than it was. And I love this little detail here. We are due to arrive between 2 and 3 in the morning, but already at Bucharest, we are 3 hours late. So we cannot possibly get in till well after sunup. What Jonathan say in the first chapter 1, it seems to me that the further east you go, the more unpunctual are the trains. And so it's a nice little crack in the armor in the sense of them using this modern technology to pursue Dracula, because it's only as good as the people operating it. And a reminder for these characters as the big change happened for Jonathan, they're now in a world that is not as punctual as jolly old England. This isn't the empire right now. They're in, the backwoods of Eastern Europe, at least according to them. I don't think it's the backwoods. So I would love to go. A little more. And then this is all Seward, right? Yeah, this is Seward, and he's noticing that the way she is talking is in her trance is different, that she's not just giving the facts, that her words were more enigmatical, he says.
Yep.
She says, something is going out. I can feel it pass me like a cold wind. I can hear far off confused sounds as of men talking in strange tongues, fierce falling water, and the howl of wolves. She stopped and a shudder ran through her, and then spoke no more. So more changes in Mina. And then the biggest change of all happens. They're near Galatz now on October 30th. My birthday's over. At 7 a.m. And now the professor has a really hard time getting her to continue. She starts talking. All is dark. I hear water swirling, cattle low, far off, another sound, a queer one, like, And Van Helsing, and then she stops, and Van Helsing says, go on, speak, I command you. Now, if I had asked you, if I had given the quote, who says in the novel, speak, I command you, we've been through this earlier in the novel. I think you might guess might have been Dracula. It wouldn't have been Van Helsing, but these guys are two, the hero and the villain. They both, are domineering. They're both super smart and resourceful. They both kind of lead everyone, get everyone to do what they think they should do. It's just that Van Helsing's doing it for good and Dracula's doing it. That's not a just there. I mean, that's a big difference. That Van Helsing is doing it for good and Dracula is doing it for evil. But
they're both foreigners too.
Yeah, they're both foreigners. They, Dracula's better at disguising his accent, that's for sure,
yep,
than Van Helsing is. Dracula has a better command of English. But there's also, this is like some weird tug of war thing that's going on over Mina. Anastasia sent this question to me. I'm sorry I didn't share it earlier with you, Tucker. She said, would be interested to hear you talk tomorrow about the strange battle of wills that's happening between Van Helsing and Dracula via Mina. It's almost like Mina is a conduit, but it's really Dracula and Van Helsing who are fighting it out. I really, and she also wondered if there are any queer readings of that. And that's interesting because she even just used the word queer, Mina did, clearly in a different way. But I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure this would hit like a queer reading, because it's the battle of Dracula and Van Helsing over a woman. And I don't think it's necessarily about their own, they're connected in ways that they are alike. But I don't know if that kind of reading comes out over this, but just the whole battle over me, that's what's going on here, isn't it, Tucker?
It feels like it. It's an interesting thought. If I had more time to think about it, I might have more time to articulate something.
I mean, she's in between. I mean, every hypnotic trance is like a seance that she's connecting to Dracula, and she's the person that is trying to connect Van Helsing and really the whole crew with Dracula. But as Van Helsing is the one speaking to her at the time, asking the questions, it is a battle between the two of them. And that'll continue. I think this continues throughout. I mean, through the rest of the novel. Through the last chapter too, where Mina is kind of stuck. Now it changes some next chapter. We can revisit this topic then, like Mina's position between Dracula, her position connected to Dracula, and also the men here. Will kind of change next chapter. But for now, it is, I see that. I think I'm a little hesitant because I just don't think Stoker is really playing that up, that it's a battle between, he doesn't have Dracula say anything at any point, to really emphasize that.
I don't know if it touches on that, but there is a book of short stories that is, the subtitle is the Queering of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Mm-hmm. So it may be touched on in there. I don't know. I have not received it yet. So, but when after the show, I'll post a link for that book.
Toothpickings asks if about hypnosis. He says, seems to be considered sound, solid science by the characters. Was that Stoker's take, or did he think it was a little sketchy? I mean, it is sound, solid science anyway. I mean, you do go into a trance and you reveal things without you knowing you're revealing them. You're open up your unconscious to talk. The difference with Stoker is that the men in his novel believe as people did, they believed it was the mesmerist himself was in control. And that's not the case. The greatest mesmerist in the world might not be able to hypnotize you because you are not susceptible to it. And it's really all about the person being hypnotized and how, I don't know the exact terminology, but how they put themselves under. And you can learn how to self-hypnotize yourself as well. You don't actually need someone else to do it. It's got nothing to do with hands. It's got nothing to do with a ticking watch. You know, I mean, there are certain props people can use to put you in a certain mood or condition, but there's no power coming from the person doing it. So there's really no Svengali.
About a month before everything shut down, we went to a hypnotist comedy show.
Mm-hmm.
It was an improv show with hypnotism to bring the actors into a trance or whatever. And it was all the actors were pulled out of the audience and put under. And you could tell the ones that were pretending. You know, you could tell. Yeah. They dismissed the ones that are obviously pretending. You're not being used. You're going back to your seat.
I've a few times I've had professionals try to put me under, and I just kind of go to sleep, like for real sleep. Like I just kind of like just drift off. I'm not very good at it, at being put under. It's like my body's just like it's nap time now. So I've never been able to be hypnotized, unfortunately. So I would love to be hypnotized. So that would be cool. And then have it recorded and then hear myself talking. And I have no idea I said that. I like that idea. So, all right. Van Helsing's commanding her, and she has this great reaction here because she says, oh, you know, what have I said? What have I done? Like, she's a little surprised, like, whoa, what's going on here? And then she says, it seems so funny to hear you order me about as if I were a bad child. And I like that. I mean, she's doing it in I think a non-threatening way, because Stoker certainly doesn't want her to threaten them, because I don't think the author can handle that, let alone the other men. But she's clearly letting him know that, like, don't treat me like a child. She's calling him out on that. And
but then his apology is nonsense.
Yeah. She yeah, but he does that whole chivalric thing in it, you know, like, you know, her whom I am proud to obey, you know.
I only yell at you because I love you.
Yeah. No, it's, you know, it's what you know, it's what a patronizing person will say to someone. But who I am proud to obey, I find that interesting because it's another call out to that kind of chivalric ideal that these men all have. And it's not by saying that, it doesn't mean you respect her. It means that, you know, that you have put her kind of on this pedestal, and that is, that's not the same thing as respect, and not that she isn't equal to them. And she certainly is. And she'll really prove it to them this chapter, which is absolutely great. Then we get a little bit from Mina's journal, which seems, hey, great, we got Mina's journal, but then it's like, you know, it's a couple paragraphs, and it's nothing. But this chapter does want to really, this has got to be more people than any other chapter in the book. I don't know if it is or not, but it seems to me that it is. You get everybody's, you know, it's Seward to Mina to Jonathan to Seward, and it just keeps jumping around. And that doesn't usually happen. It's usually two, maybe three at the most journal entries for the bulk of this book, you know, after we're done letters and things like that. And he's really putting a lot in here and really moving the story along. So we're here Mina for a little bit, and everybody, because everyone is relating a little more information and a little more plot to move forward, which is really nice. And this was that Mina says Godalming went to the vice consul because his rank as lord might serve as an immediate guarantee of some sort to the official. And I
really enjoyed the opening line there, though, about Quincy. Even 120 years ago, Americans were ignoramuses who didn't learn second languages.
Yeah, since he does not speak any, the foreign language he speaks is the Winchester. That's his language. So that's funny. I missed that. That's very funny. Yeah, of the group, Quincy's the one that can't speak the foreign.
The only one.
Be surprised there. So Well, why not? We take our mid-break now, before we get into the next journal entry, which will be a little, yeah. So we'll take our mid-break, right? It is the midpoint of the show, kind of. I'm not even worried about it. We're gonna end today when we end today.
Yeah,
like that's what's gonna happen. So if we go long today, we're gonna go long. So. I want to thank, first of all, I want to thank the new members of the Dracula Club. We did the special again throughout October, and we did manage to sign up a bunch of new people. And they would be how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 19 people joined, 19 more people joined, I think, the Dracula Club. Thanks to John, Nicole, Christine, Sarah, Hollis, Mary, Matthew, Adrian, Jean, Annie, Annie NT, Patricia, Marina, Andrew, Jim, and Dwayne, Mark, and Stuart. Stuart was actually who did the great fan art for the show. Stuart was actually the first one that joined when we redid the special to join the Dracula Club. So from all over this country and all over the world, at least one. Adrian, you all know, thank you for joining, Adrian from France, but the rest of them are, Philadelphia and Burbank, California, Brooklyn, New York, Buffalo, New York, Hamilton, New Jersey, Shreveport, Louisiana, Wickliffe, Ohio, Paoli, PA, and Hamilton, Ohio. So thank you all for joining the Dracula Club. Thanks for supporting this and what we're doing here. And enjoy your Dracula Club cards when you get them. Everybody's been posting those great pictures with the Dracula Club cards. Keep that going as you get them. Keep posting them. And we also now have a sticker, but we only got a few of them. There's about I think there's like 50 stickers that we got, and we can obviously order more, but we did order some stickers for the show, and we are giving them for donations. And let me share the sticker with you if you haven't. It's been posted on our Facebook account. And here it is. It's just, I spend my Sundays with Dracula at the Rosenbach, and you can, if you donate $20, we will send you a sticker. And 2 people already did that. It was Britta and boy, somebody else did too, and now I can't remember to thank. But Britta in Hamburg, Germany, already did that, and I appreciate that. And Anne, thank you, Anne, for donating further and getting the sticker as a little bonus. That was really nice. So, all right, that's all I got to say. Right, for the mid break, we can just go back to the chapter, or do you think people want to hear anything else, Tucker?
That's up to you, Ed. I already know the answers.
You know the answer. All right, everybody. The next Biblio venture we will be on will start in January, actually towards the end of January 24th. I do need a few Sundays off. I need 2 months of getting off the Sunday train will be nice for me. I can watch Eagles games when they actually air instead of the replay later. So we're going to start on January 24th, and it's going to go until May 2nd. So it'll be a little bit of a shorter run than this one. But that's because the book itself is shorter, and I think we can do it in a little less time as well. Not that there isn't a ton to talk about with this book, but we could probably get the weekly meetings in fewer meetings. It's still going to be on Sundays. It's going to air from 2 to 4 on Sundays on Zoom, just like this. You'll register for it the same way you did for this one. So it'll be free to watch. It'll be live streamed on Facebook, just like this show is. And we'll have a cocktail of the week. But always going to be a cocktail. I'm stretching it out as long as I can.
I'm waiting to see how long you can drag it out.
There is going to be a cocktail of the week. Tamworth Distilling has already agreed to sponsor it, and that'll be, you know, much more involved. There'll be more photos of it this time. The drinks ahead of time. The drinks will all be designed ahead of time. I'm literally made my drink decision this morning on this Darkly Mina. I was just, you know, I had no time this week to work on a drink, but I had the perfect whiskey for it, and it was just a matter of, all right, this morning I realized what I would do with it. So you ready? Starting on January 24th, I hope you will all return for Sundays with Frankenstein. If you had asked me 6 months ago, before we started this Dracula run, what my favorite monster book was, it would have been hands down, it's Frankenstein. It's, you know, I mean, this is what I've taught it more than any other novel. I've read it more. I've read it maybe more. It's between Frankenstein and I Am Legend. They're actually the two novels I've read the most in my life. I just keep going, and Moby Dick. But Moby Dick is longer, and I've kind of took a break from that for a while. But I love Frankenstein, and I've always wanted to do it in the way we're doing it. Every time I teach it, it always feels so abbreviated, and you can only touch on so many things. This way we'll really get to do the long, deep dive. And I say 6 months ago, I'd be hard pressed not to, I mean, say that Dracula isn't, you know, as favorite as Frankenstein is with me now. I've been completely struck by all of the, surprised by so much that I have found in Dracula that I wasn't quite sure I would find as much in there as I find in Frankenstein. But Frankenstein is so rich that there's, you know, it's not going to surprise me to find great detail and things to talk about with that. But it will, Mary Shelley's book is absolutely one of the most extraordinary books ever written. I mean, we could read it as a monster novel. You can read it as a novel that talks about science, a novel that talks about death, necrology, a religious novel, a birth novel, an education novel. It's a novel about myth. It's a commentary on Paradise Lost. It's a commentary on the French Revolution. It's a commentary on romantic ideology. It's sometimes like a travel book. It is, you can read it as genre fiction, as the first sci-fi book, as the first as a Gothic book. It's for me the first story with a sympathetic monster. It is, you can read it as in the genre of romantic literature, you know, with Wordsworth and Coleridge and Byron and Shelley and all those. There's so much we can do with this. It'll be so much fun. So co-hosts, let me tell you who's going to be my co-hosts for this one. A man by the name of Dan Hodge will join me. Dan is a very respected actor in Philadelphia with quite a following around here, but he's actually moved on to other locations now. He's done some Shakespeare shows, one-man shows at the Rosenbach for me. I've seen him in other productions around town. He also has a very extensive Frankenstein collection, but his collection is more in the kind of pop culture movies and things. He has posters and albums and all kinds of letters. He's a long-running, he has several letters. He started writing to James Bernard, who did the movie soundtracks for Dracula, the Hammer Draculas and Frankensteins and all. Just years ago, he started writing him letters, and has letters from him, all kinds of cool things that he has in his collection. So he certainly read Frankenstein and knows it, but I like him that he'll be coming in from a different angle. He is someone that was first firmly in the, you know, in the pop culture movie realm of Frankenstein, and now will be reading the book with me, and we'll be talking about it. Another co-host we'll have is our very own Anastasia Klimchinskaya, who is in the audience today right now. You all know her. We've had her on Drac Chat. She is a 19th century fantastic literature scholar. She has a strong link with the Sherlockian fan community. She's been a valued member of our Dracula audience from the very beginning. I'm very excited to have Anastasia on some of these shows with me. And so we're saying, like, Anastasia knew all along. Yeah, she's known actually for weeks now. This has been going on. And I decided, yes, this would be perfect. I will have 2 more co-hosts, and that will be the Ghoul Guides. Mary Going and Dr. Lauren Nixon are returning for Frankenstein. So we'll rotate co-hosts just like we do this time. We just have one fewer Sunday with them, which is easier to do because we have fewer Sundays to do. So it'll be Dan Hodge and Anastasia, and Mary and Lauren again will appear together again as they have for Dracula. And I was so happy that they said yes, that they'd be willing to do this show again, because they have to do it at nighttime, like it's Sunday nights for them. So it's not always the easiest to get up and get going for Sunday night when you got to go back to work the next day. So
I was hoping you were going to get them.
Yeah, so I was hoping to, but I wanted to get the others in first before, and we will have a great new song for Sundays with Frankenstein. Is that correct? Right?
Yeah.
And that's the one that's just been released that we're gonna.
Yeah, I just released it for Halloween weekend. It is called "It's Alive," and it's really inspired by. It's inspired by Don Banks's Evil of Frankenstein soundtrack. It's got Easter eggs of if you're listening really closely, you can hear an Edgar Winter Easter egg in there.
Oh yeah, oh good.
And if you listen even closer, you can find Putting on the Ritz in there.
That is awesome. So we have excuse me. Some questions here from Tammy. Does the Rosenbach have any Amazon affiliate links? We don't. I'm not sure if we'll wind up doing that, but I will look into that. When somebody else asks Tim asks which edition of Frankenstein will we use, and that will be. It'll probably be the 1818 text that we're using. There's the 1818 text. There's three actually editions of Frankenstein. The 1818. There's a slightly edited 1824 second edition, and then there's the 1831 that Mary Shelley edited extensively. And the or not extensively, but enough that it kind of changes the book a bit. And over 10 years later, she winds up changing some of it. I prefer the 1818, as do most people who teach the book to do that now. But certainly anything, I'll use the 1818 to follow along. And then, but any difference, anything that happened from the 1831 that was added, I'm certainly going to mention at that point in it anyway. So it's kind of like I'm using them both at the same time. So 1818 edition of Frankenstein. All this information will be out there soon. We haven't posted any of this on our website yet. We will very soon post all the information about, what it'll be, the exact dates. It'll start January 24th. Adrian's asked the same time. It is the same time. I'm sorry, Adrian. I know, because, your time difference over there in France, but it'll be 2 to 4 in the afternoon. It's when I can get the most people together, I think, on a Sunday afternoon. I don't think changing the time would help at all. So as soon as we get all the information online, I'll let you know about it. I'm hoping we'll have all the registration and everything will be there before Dracula even ends, so you can sign up for it, then right away. So awesome.
Circling back to the question about the affiliate links.
Yeah.
Rosenbach is an option for the Smile program. If you sign up for the Smile program, and then every time you go to Amazon, you use smile.amazon.com instead of www, it automatically gives a percentage to a nonprofit organization that you set up in your account. Okay. I have Rosenbach set up as mine. Yeah. I don't know how they send the money to you, but
that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. I'll look into that and make sure we have all that taken care of too. So, but Frankenstein, more drinking and smoking that I get to do. If the Rosenbach winds up opening at some point before we're finished with that, we can have episodes in front of a live audience, which would be cool. But I have no idea. None of us have any idea whether or not when we'll be open and how that will happen. But if you figure we're running to May 2, there's a chance that we could actually be together for some of these to do the show in front of a live audience. It means I can't smoke during it. Oh well. But I'll certainly get to have a cocktail. So All right. I hope you will all join us. I hope this is, it will be just as exciting for you doing Frankenstein as it has been doing Dracula. I'm sure there are some people in the audience who are you love Dracula and Frankenstein's okay, but I absolutely can assure you that it is Frankenstein would be just as exciting a biblio venture as Dracula has been. You will really love how we talk about that book and what we can bring out of that book. So I hope I'll have all of you back, and then even more, like people who really love Frankenstein will hear about it and will come and do it with us. So the Rosenbach we have a first edition of Frankenstein and first editions of all of the Mary Shelley novels, I'm pretty certain. We also have some other items related to the weekend or the summer of the Villa Diodati summer when Percy and Mary and Byron and Polidori all got together. We have a manuscript edition of Byron's manuscript draft of Byron's poem Prometheus, which he wrote that summer. We have some Percy Shelley books and manuscript of at least one poem. We have letters from Mary Shelley that she had written to friends. So we have nice bits in the collection that really attach to this. And while we don't have anything like Stoker's notes or a manuscript for Dracula, the manuscript for Frankenstein is in the Bodleian Library collection, and we had pages of it at the Rosenbach for an exhibition a couple of years ago. But it's actually also all online on the Shelley Godwin archive, and under the Creative Commons license. I can share those pictures from that website on the show on Sunday on a free show. So we'll actually be able to share, look at manuscript pages of the novel, and also look at things from the Rosenbach's collections, which will be a lot of fun. Good. So I could talk about this for the next hour, but clearly we got to get back to this chapter, and we got to finish Dracula before we ever get to Frankenstein. And I want to, I definitely want to finish Dracula because I love it so much. All righty. We're back to, now we're at Jonathan Harker's journal on October 30. And Van Helsing and Seward and I went to the London agents to find out what's going on. They had that Godalming had a telegraph request them to help them, and so they are, because the Lord asks them to. They pulled the Lord card so much in this. And then they encounter Captain Donaldson. So we get the last bit of dialect in the novel, and here he's an old, it seems to be Scottish, it's Scottish sailor, and I'm not going to I'm not going to attempt the accent, but he says it's he tells them the story about how they were sailing and their ship run from London to the Black Sea with a wind ahint ye as though the Deil himself were blowing on your sail for his own purpose. So it's more of a pirate accent than Scottish. But they made it there in record time because there was just a constant wind behind them the entire way. And every time they went past a ship or a port or a headland, they were covered in fog, so nobody could see them. So Dracula was clearly controlling all the elements here to get them from London to the Black Sea as quickly as possible and with nobody watching them. So
it's interesting to me that I really didn't notice until recently that there's an imperfect symmetry to this book where things that happen in the beginning are definitely mirrored or paralleled at the end. And this, he combines Swales and the captain's log from the Demeter into one passage and makes a parallel to the beginning of the novel. And it's really, really cool.
I love that idea. Yeah. And then so you get this kind of, it's not just a mirroring, it's a building, right? I've got the one here and then the other, and now it's all together.
and I like that a lot. And it's really just to give us information. Like, we don't need this. You could do this in a paragraph of just, and we heard from the captain, and and that this went on. But he likes to keep this book grounded too in first person narrator. So if he encounters someone who can give some narration in their own voice, Stoker likes to use them.
It's a stylized data dump.
Yeah. And this one he keeps talking about the devil and the old man. The devil's doing this, and it's ironic for the reader and for Van Helsing too, who makes a joke about it, like the devil is more clever than he is thought to be by some, you know. So the vampire hunters realize this guy doesn't realize that it's actually kind of the devil who has been doing all of this, and you are serving his purpose. And then he tells them that he also tells them that the men on the ship begin to grumble, and it was the Romanians on board who said, that box in the hold, throw it overboard. Yep. They know something's wrong. And he says it was put on board by a queer looking old man just before we started. And they spear at the fellow. They looked at him and put out their 12 fingers when they saw him to guard against the evil eye. So it's much better to do him as a pirate, I think. The superstition of foreigners is perfectly ridiculous. So it's funny that he has that reaction, and that's Jonathan's actually reaction too, and it is a lot like Swales too, right? Mr. Swale says things like that. He exactly
says that.
Yeah, people that believe in superstitions, that's that's all nonsense.
But he also adds in the superstitions of foreigners. It's just like Swales. I think I was on for that conversation, and we said their superstitions are ridiculous, but mine are perfectly fine.
Yeah. So they want to throw him off, but he says no. And then if you didn't catch it, he says, I had to argue with him about it with a handspike. And when the last of them rose off the deck with his head in his hand, what he means is he had to literally beat them over the head with like a little bar, the handspike they use. They put in the pegs of the ship, and then you wrap and you can wrap the ropes around them. But he literally had to beat them all with it and knock them down to get them to comply, and they do. So and they do. So but it's okay for him, because as soon as they come into port, the man comes on board with an order saying, that box is I have a receipt for a box for Count Dracula, and he just takes it off. And he and also he mentions how they just kind of blow right by Varna and go right to Galatz. So it is, and we know that this has always been the case now. Later we'll find out that Dracula has planned for them to go to Galatz to begin with. So it's not as if Dracula changed his plans going through here. I used to think that he realized through Mina that they were following him, so he avoids Varna, goes to Galatz. He intends it the entire time. He wants them to go to Varna, and he will go to Galatz. And they shoot right off to Galatz, and then the captain says the last thing: if the devil did have any luggage aboard the ship, I'm thinking it was none other than that same. So he agrees that this must be the devil's box. It is, and he's actually inside it, and you didn't even realize it. So to think how like this novel could have ended. Like they could have thrown him overboard.
Yeah, they could have thrown it over.
And Dracula never shows up at the ports. And
we need Kim Newman to write that version now.
So it could have ended quickly. They find out, and then they go to the guy that wrote the receipt for it is Emmanuel Hildesheim. At the Bugenstrasse 16 was the address, and they go to him, and Jonathan gets out this anti-Semitic comment, and it's that it's that kind of really awful casual, you know, racism that just goes, oh, he's just like some stereotypical Jew, you know what they look like, and then just blows right by it. You know, shame on Stoker for still furthering these kinds of ideas. But Jonathan says, we found him in his office, a Hebrew of rather the Adelphi theater type, with a nose like a sheep and a fez.
To Stoker's credit, he does cut it later.
He cuts that out of
he cuts it completely out.
The bridge. Yeah. Well, hopefully he cut it out because he realized that it was an awful thing to say. But he didn't cut it out of further editions of the full Dracula. So there you go. He could have done that. Adam sends a question in here. Send me a question. What is meant by an Adelphi theater type? I'm just checking to make sure I didn't have any questions I didn't answer. So, and he says, I looked it up and I looked up what I could about the Adelphi theater. Has a long and illustrious history as long and illustrious a history as Stoker's Lyceum. It seems, I love that Stoker's Lyceum, like Henry Irving would have been like, what do you mean Stoker's Lyceum? That's Irving's Lyceum. It seems a little bit like the Adelphi did more musicals and light comedy, and the Adelphi did more serious theater, at least in those times, and during Irving's reign. So was Stoker just making a jab at a rival theater? And then he has some more here, but I just want to address that first, because it is a theater that was known mainly for melodramas and farces. So what he's saying is, what Jonathan is saying here is that Hildesheim looks like the kind of Jewish character you'd see in a farce, with all the raw caricature stereotypes, with the large nose and the way he behaved. Maybe he's probably hunched over a little. I mean, you know, all those awful racial caricatures that you see on stage, that's actually what he looked like, is what he's saying. So
and apparently one of their most popular plays at the Adelphi was a version of The Wandering Jew.
Yeah, so it's something well known there. Adam's also wondering if it's about if calling someone a theater type might be a way of questioning their sexuality, you know, as a theater person, like the more recent idea of theater having a larger gay contingent, and Stoker, you know, is also a literary theater type. And that idea, that's I don't think that's there at all. That doesn't seem to be what he's getting at. I do like the idea, though, that he's making a jab at a rival, that Adam writes. So was Stoker just making a jab at a rival theater? I like that a lot. The fact that, you know, the Adelphi isn't that far from the Lyceum, and they have a dramatic fare that is not quite as serious as the Lyceum. I don't think they do Shakespeare, you know, at the Adelphi. I could be wrong. I think that they were not the kind of theater that did that kind of work. So it is him, you know, kind of making a jab, not just at, you know, not just making a joke, a racist joke at the expense of this character, but also, yeah, a little bit of jab at the competition. You know, if you want to see these kind of people, you go to the Adelphi. So if you want to see, I don't know, King Lear or Macbeth, then you go to the Lyceum. So, and he's already called out Ellen Terry in the book. He's mentioned her, and so maybe he thought Henry Irving would think that line was funny, so that's why he put it in. So, they find out that a Mr. DeVille of London. We get to Mr. DeVille again. I love that.
In the manuscript, he had it as D. Mandeville.
I love that. Yeah, it's Mr. D. Mandeville, and that's actually a better pun if it's Mandeville, because it's D man. So his name would be Dracula Mandeville, and I love that pun. And I'm sorry he did. Now I'm sorry he did use just DeVille and not Mandeville all through it, because that's like a deeper pun. But it also recognizes that Dracula is a man and a beast, and Stoker has his characters constantly going through how he's not. He's just a beast. He's not a man. They constantly describe him in beastly terms. So I wonder if that was just a slip of the pen at that point, or or what, or how that made it into there at that point. It might just been a mistake, like, oh, I wrote Mandeville, I didn't mean to write Mandeville. Or he had originally had him conceived as Mandeville, because the earlier reference to him, it doesn't say Mandeville at all. So.
No.
All righty.
But I like the idea of multiple aliases, even if they're related. Multiple aliases is actually a little bit smarter, isn't it?
Bill in London and Mandeville here. Yeah, that would have been really cool. So maybe that was maybe that was the conception of it to begin with, that he should have a different yet similar, name for his return to Eastern Europe. They find out that Petrov Skinsky has who deals with the Slovaks who trade down the river, has taken charge of the box. And I love that twice he mentions Hildesheim was paid with an English bank note. And then Skinsky is also paid with English money, pays his rent with English money. As if, I wonder if he's saying there that English currency has more value, like they can trust English money more at this point. I'm not quite sure if that's what he's getting at, that it's not just that he's been paid, but he's emphasizing that it's with English money. People would respect that more, because money's all about, whether or not you trust the currency. So, and that they would trust money from England because England is the big, powerful empire. So, Skinsky has disappeared. He's gone away 2 days before. No one knows where. And then suddenly, while they're even there, somebody comes running up. The body of Skinsky has been found inside the wall of the churchyard of St. Peter, and that the throat had been torn open as if by some wild animal. And then the women cry out, "It's the work of a Slovak," because, it's the world and everybody's got to blame the other people going on. And, and they hurried away. We hurried away lest we should have been in some way drawn into the affair and so detained. They're not going to get mixed up in this Eastern European murder. And they know who it is. They know Dracula did it. So it wasn't the Slovaks. Dracula did it. So when we get together, the first thing was here's Jonathan says, when we get together, the first thing was to consult as to taking Mina again into our confidence. Again, they're, just give it up. Just take her into your confidence. Things are getting desperate, and it is at least a chance, though a hazardous one. I guess taking her into confidence, and that there could be a risk that Dracula could find something out. And he said, as a preliminary step, I was released from my promise to her. I'm a little confused. Do you know what promise? Because he's made more than one promise.
I'm assuming that means he doesn't have to kill her anymore.
I don't think that.
I don't know why.
That doesn't make sense that it's it. And maybe it's the promise. It's the promise that he won't tell her anything. She made him promise that, remember? She said, promise me you won't tell me anything that's going on because I could be a danger. That's the first promise she makes him make.
That makes sense.
Second promise is the killing her. So it's the first one that I won't that he's going to tell her things. So he's really,
that makes more sense, but it definitely reads unclear.
It does. And and it should be the promise that you'll murder your wife, Jonathan. That's the one you want to break. You don't want to promise to murder her. I get that you might have to kill her if she turns on full-on vampire. You shouldn't have to promise that. So
as a husband, you should wait until that happens.
I'll make that call when it happens. Okay. So
Quincy can promise to do it on a doubt, but you have to wait till she turns.
Yeah. So Quincy's not going to bed with you every night, so he can make that decision. Now we're in Mina's journal again. Let me check the questions here. Ooh, Adrian notes that too. The Dracula. I didn't catch that. Dracula murders Petrov in a churchyard. Isn't that awesome? So very devilish.
He walls him up in a churchyard.
Says, yeah. So and poor Petrov Skinsky. Like, we find out who he is. We find out his name. We find out. We go to a place where he lives, and he's dead. Like, well, we didn't even get to know. Like, we didn't even meet him. So almost like talk about extra. We even met Hiddlesheim, but we don't even get to meet this guy. He's just there to be killed. He is total red shirt, on the mission. Total red shirt in Star Trek on the mission here. Your purpose is to die.
I think if Dracula had a point of contact with Hiddlesheim, he'd have been dead too.
Well, yeah. It's odd that he gets to live. But he does in the beginning. Right now, he doesn't. I guess he never meets him because he sends him he gets a letter, and then he gets to take that there. So if he had met him, he probably would have killed him. Yeah. So back to Mina's journal. They were so tired and worn out and dispirited that there was nothing to be done till they had some rest. So I asked them all to lie down for half an hour whilst I should enter everything up to the moment. So Mom says, take a nap, boys. You need a nap. It's nap time for the team. Mina's back to mothering them. They need it, unfortunately. But it's not the role she should be playing for you guys. The role she should be playing is then what she does, because she gets at her Traveler's typewriter that Mr. Morris got for her, which I love. Did you see the note on the Facebook page, Tucker, that Adam had written to?
I did see that.
Yeah, let me share that. Adam had written to a. I'll share the website with a Traveler's typewriter. Here it is. But Adam had written to a Martin Howard, who is an antique typewriter collector, an expert, and he let him know that this could be the one. This is a Traveler's typewriter. This is what they look like. Very little. There's no casing for it in a sense, right? It's just the spool for the paper and the ink in here, the ribbon in here, and the keys, and that's it. It's just very small and compact. There's even a little advertisement for it down here. The Traveler's Companion, a 5-pound private secretary. So I think Martin Howard said the usual typewriter weighed something like 20 pounds, that they were kind of heavy in those days. I mean, the metal that they're using to make them was all pretty heavy. But this is just a 5-pound built of aluminum and steel. And that's what they looked like. And I love that. So well done on Adam for tracking that down. And this is different than the one. There's a couple of them in the Klinger edition, and none of them are this compact. And I love the idea that this might have been as compact as you can get for a Traveler's typewriter. So again, another example, right? Modern technology. This is how we're combating Dracula. This is how we keep things organized. We use the most up-to-date technology we can to combat this centuries old evil. So, or evil. When it's that evil, it's evil. Mina is very concerned for Jonathan here. And we get this little bit of change. We get this arc for Jonathan in this chapter where he's ready for action in the beginning, grabbing his knife, and now he starts to get run down, and then he'll just lose it. And then he'll resurrect himself again. But right now she says it is all poor, dear Jonathan, what he must have suffered, what must be suffering now. His whole body appears in collapse. His brows are knit. His face is drawn with pain. Poor fellow. Maybe he is thinking, and I can see his face all wrinkled up with the concentration of his thoughts. Oh, if I could only help at all, I shall do what I can. I mean, good on you, Mina, because you're the one that deserves the attention, not Jonathan. It didn't happen to him. It happened to you. But that's the way she approaches her relationship. She's going to take care of him no matter what. It's good for her and even better for him. that he gets to have the breakdown and his wife has to be the one that, you know, takes care of the whole situation. So she says, I shall try to follow the professor's example and think without prejudice on the facts before me. She's going to get right back to work and start figuring out this while Jonathan crashes on the couch because he can't handle it anymore. Mina can handle it, certainly. And she does. She gets back out all the old files and she does her detective work and she makes a discovery. I made a discovery. I should get the maps and look over them. I am more than ever sure I am right. I love this discovery by Mina and the way she puts all this together, right? This is fabulous. Her memorandum entered in, and it's Mina Harker's memorandum entered in her journal. And I wish the her was in like italics, but it's not. But it's like, it's her journal. She's writing, like she's written out this memorandum for all of them. And then, but she's taken it out of her own journal. That's where she's written it first. So, and it's a ground of inquiry. Count Dracula's problem is to get back to his own place. And that's what she's then got to solve. And she does it very logically and very, very much like Sherlock would have done it. Right. It is, she listed out, he must be brought back by someone. And then, but it's also the confined as he is between dawn and sunset in his wooden box. And she gets all this from Van Helsing. Van Helsing's like, oh, he has to be in the box.
I think she, as cool as it is, I think she does jump to a lot of conclusions that aren't necessarily true. Like,
you read any Sherlock Holmes story, and then once he goes and explains how he did it, you get to, and you're amazed. But if you really think about it, he takes big leaps to connect one point to the other, and that's the dramatic part about,
It is fun as long as you don't think too hard about it.
Well, but what about this? Like, and because this is Van Helsing will say it again later in this chapter. Like, Dracula can't go out of his box. Yes, he can.
Yeah, he can.
He's done it before
repeatedly.
Something about I don't think it's Stoker has forgotten it. I just think that he needs to confine him for this final trip. And so he
needs it to be laid out in a certain way. So rules be damned,
I mean, he just, why don't he just ship the box and, travel outside of it, especially once the ship is there, once the ship docks, can't he just travel to his land on, by himself and then have the box shipped there? He doesn't even need it anymore. He's got his own soil at the castle. Why are you taking the box? I don't believe I've never said that before. Why do you even need to take the box? You have soil there. He wants to, it's a limitation that Dracula winds up having, and it gives them an advantage over him in that they're not facing him out in the open, that he's just in the box the whole time. We'll see what happens when they finally do face him, but they have an advantage then too, that the way they get to face him in the end, but it's the Kim Newman solution to this would have been Jack just would have killed them all, because that makes sense, that Dracula could do that and he doesn't, but here he thinks that he wants to emphasize that he has to be in that box of earth. So I think by the end of this novel, what has begun is kind of maybe murky, maybe like Van Helsing and we just don't quite understand the ways of Dracula. But by the end, the novel is saying that Dracula has to be in the box during the day. So, I mean, I can argue and say that, well, he was out of it before. Well, maybe I don't know exactly why he was out, like maybe there's some reason that he could be. And there's some reason he can't be now, but certainly by the end of the book, he can't be out of the box during the day. Or he would be.
Reason. It's just reasons.
well, is it also a way that like it is actually the safest thing? Because if he's not in the box in the day, he doesn't have his supernatural powers, like maybe he's still strong. He could jump through a window and not be hurt kind of thing, but he certainly can't transform. And So he is more vulnerable in the daytime than he is at night.
And maybe he's just counting on people like Donaldson who are going to protect their cargo at all costs. So,
and and the Slovaks now who are taking him, and then Lady the Sagani who will pick him up and take him on the last part of the journey to the castle in the next chapter, that he realizes, well, if I have to be out in the daytime, then I'm more vulnerable than I'm more vulnerable being out than I am being in a box guarded by people. So, but it certainly could have failed on the ship, that's for sure. So they'd thrown him overboard. All righty. So she says she just tries to figure it out logically. How is to be taken by road? There's too many difficulties. By rail, it isn't work because there's no one person in charge of the box, and you can be delayed. By water, it's high in danger in that you could be thrown overboard, but he can actually control the elements, and he actually seems safer on the ship. So that's what he does. And then to ascertain what water he'll be taking to get back to the castle, she's the one that says he evidently intended to arrive at Galatz and sent invoice to Varna to deceive us, lest we be ascertain his means of exit from England. So she knows that ahead of time too, that she figures it out too, that Dracula fooled them. And the Count wanted isolation, she says. That's a weird thing at that point. She talks about after he kills Skinsky. The Count wanted isolation. I think she just means he wants to kill the people who know about this.
I want to address something there, because it really has been bothering me that every single annotated edition at that passage there where she talks about, in my husband's diary, Skinsky is mentioned as dealing with the Slovaks who trade down the river. For some reason, every single annotated edition, I think, assumes she is talking about the first 4 chapters and claim that he doesn't discuss that. But it's only 3 pages before that he.
No, yeah, it was just That's like the report she just typed up.
There's at least 3 annotated editions that make that assumption, and it really bothers me. Clear is one of them, and I consider him the gold standard, and he made that mistake.
That's odd, yeah, because this is all she's doing is she's just talking about this is just in the diary that I typed up. So, and where he said that. And then she says he was brought from the castle by the Sagani and delivered to the Slovaks, then take him to Varna. And so now he's just kind of reversing the order of all this. Again, I agree with you that they've made a lot. They make a lot of assumptions here, but they also make a lot out of, where's he going to go? He's going to go back.
Well, yeah, that's
like I would have assumed he was going back to his castle from the start. I don't think I ever needed to figure that out. Like that's just it's clearly the safest place for him in the world.
Well, I don't think it's that they're figuring out where he's going. Is how is he getting there?
Yeah,
and that's the whole point. They just make a lot of logical jumps to get to that point.
And she figures out, she then examines the maps, and she finds the river most suitable, like which river is going to get closest to there. That's got to be the one. So she does. And it's she comes down to, it must be the Sereth, not the Pruth, because it runs up around the Borgo Pass. And that's where, the closest he can get to this. Like if he's going to utilize water to get close, then that would be the one he would take. And that's the real jump in logic, because I don't know, couldn't he use a cart, and she seems to put that away, saying like land is more dangerous than being on the water. And that's why she has chosen that he must be going by river. So she comes up with all this, and then everybody praises her. They're shaking, Jonathan's hugging and kissing her. They're all shaking her hands. little overreaction, guys. I think she's already proven she's smarter than all of you. But now they're all like, oh my God, that's the most brilliant thing ever. Of course it is. She's smarter than all of you. Madam Mina is once more our teacher. And then I like the way kind of, it's almost like Van Helsing's like, oh, you're so brilliant, you're our teacher. And then he kind of elbows her out of the way. And he's like, now let's talk about what we're going to do here.
I like that they all instantly know what they're going to do.
Well, at least he doesn't take credit, you know, at least he doesn't say like, you know, hey, I know everybody. Maybe he's going to go by this river. And they're all like, wow, Van Helsing, that's so brilliant. That they at least give her the credit, which is good.
So when you read Van Helsing's diary, she had none of that.
But again, he mentions this, he may not leave his box lest those who carry him may suspect. So he's in the box and that's where he has to stay. And he can't come out of it because people be like, oh my God, you're a vampire. It seems like not a great argument to me that he just get out of your box, damn it. Start running, because you might make more ground if you run at certain points. But he is stuck in his box. So as long as he's stuck in his box, he needs to rely on the people guarding him. And this is our Council of War. They're going to get a steam launch and they're going to get horses to follow on the bank. And
they've already got their Winchesters.
Yeah, well, because the Slovaks have guns, it says all the men smiled, for amongst them they carried a small arsenal. And Quincy says, I have brought some Winchesters. They are pretty handy in a crowd, and there may be wolves. So you know he's doing that with his big old Western drawl. But I love this idea too, that you get the modern tech, the steamboat modern tech, along with old world tech, the horses, and American ingenuity, the Winchesters. This is what America, gives to this, equation here. Is the Winchester. Although I think wasn't it American that invented the steamboat? Wasn't that Robert Fulton? I don't remember. But anyway, I love this. It's technology and horses and new firepower, so because the Winchester is a powerful weapon still in those days. By the end of the 19th century, it is a powerful gun, a repeating rifle that you can fire repeatedly, and it's much more accurate than rifles had been previously. So now it is Van Helsing as we shall not rest until the Count's head, or is this, who says this? Seward says we shall not rest till the Count's head and body have been separated, and we are sure that he cannot reincarnate. I don't know. I always feel like Seward's like, wait a minute, let me say something. Like, why is he the one saying that we have to cut his head off? Well, he's so devoted to Lucy, and he's still looking for revenge for that, obviously. And then he says, Jonathan looked at me. I could see that this is because this is Mina's journal. Yes, and she says, Jonathan looked at me. I could see that the poor dear was torn about in his mind. Of course, he wanted to be with me, but then the boat service would most likely be the one which would destroy the vampire. Why did I hesitate to write the word? Why did she hesitate? Tucker, what do you think?
I think that's a weird section. If it was a photograph like Seward, that makes sense. If she's writing it, I don't think it makes sense.
She's writing the ellipses and everything. The ... the vampire. But she hesitates to write it, and I think it's the first hint that it's not the first hint. It's it is a continuing hint that she is turning, that she is aligning with Dracula because she's becoming a vampire, right? And they do need to be careful in a sense. If she turns completely, they'll have to stake her. She doesn't, because these new vampires don't seem to be powerful like Dracula is. So Lucy was easy for them to repulse with a cross, and to really resist her. It wasn't that hard to resist her. I get the feeling Jonathan wouldn't be able to resist Mina. Mina would say, "Come to me, Jonathan," and he'd be in her arms in a flash, vampire or not. So, especially at this stage of the game, when he's kind of crumbling away here, she'd really get him quickly, don't you think?
Absolutely.
But
And
then
I
Quincy
think,
would just murder her.
and I think you would do it for Kate, and I would do it for Shannon.
Oh, that's my choice. Yeah, I'm definitely joining the vampire rather than killing my wife, the vampire. And then Van Helsing says, "Friend Jonathan, it is your right to destroy him, because he has wrought such woe to you and yours. That Jonathan has the right to destroy Dracula." First of all, why doesn't Arthur?
Yeah, exactly.
Arthur's got dibs.
Yeah.
You got Lucy before you got Mina. I got dibs. And I then had to murder Lucy. That's like even more of a reason that
Arthur's been wronged more than Jonathan at this point.
But it's a reminder that this isn't about just destroying evil for its own sake, so that Dracula doesn't go on to harm other people. This is really about avenging Jonathan's honor.
Well, as Stoker knows that this is Mina's story also.
Well, do you think that they would even have pursued Dracula outside of England had Mina not been attacked and in danger? Like, they don't behave that way.
I think Van Helsing would have. I think Van Helsing's obsessive.
They maybe, but he's also not British. So, and I could see that. I could see them really making the decision that, once Dracula, if they can chase him out of England, then he's not their problem. He's only their problem because he has attacked Mina. And number one, Jonathan's honor needs to be served. And and Mina could still turn into a vampire, so they want to stop him so they can hopefully save her from that. I think
Van Helsing would have done it just out of curiosity.
Arthur's the question. Would Arthur have wanted to continue to go after him because of Lucy? And then maybe that's it. Maybe it's just they're still pursuing him because he has attacked their women. I don't know. Because there's a lot of the colonial empire in this book and in their kind of reasoning. A couple chapters ago, they were talking about how it's their duty to go and free these people, but it seems to be only after they've it's because he's hurt Mina, just like the colonial empire, they just need to find a reason. As long as we have a reason to invade another country and fight the heathens overseas, then we're good with that. And then it's all about how we're taking care of you people. But and that colonialist language is all over these few chapters here in this pursuit. But Stoker personalizes it by giving us the real reason for this group it's because of Mina. And that's the honor that needs to be settled. So, and I guess that's the way most, especially adventure books, come up with the reasons for why people do what they do. That it's not just kind of political ideology or reasons of acquiring power so much. So if you give the character a personal reason, then readers can believe it more. But the end result is that they have to kill Dracula because Jonathan gets to kill Dracula because he's attacked Mina, and that's why they're doing this. So Jonathan reminds them about the castle, right? And then he freaks out. Do you know what that place is? With the very moonlight and grisly shapes and the speck of dust that whirls in the wind, a devouring monster in embryo. Have you felt the vampire's lips upon your throat? Jonathan's freaking out. And then he sinks down on the sofa in a collapse of misery. So he's a mess. And Van Helsing's has to remind them all that, like, we have to get him. If he escapes us, he can sleep for a century. And then he says, and then in time, our dear one, and he takes Mina's hand, would come to him to keep him company. So it's about Mina, right? So, and then Jonathan's response is just, do as you will. We are in the hands of God. So I think Jonathan's at the point of despair here, right? He's not, he's done.
He's done that a couple times throughout the book where Van Helsing says they have to do something, then he freaks out because he doesn't want me involved, or he doesn't think. And then Van Helsing,
earlier he was upset because they weren't doing anything quick enough. They were like, we need to investigate. Jonathan's like, what? No, we just need to go and kill him. And he's under all the stress because he wants to take action. And he's constantly frustrated. And now he just seems to be losing it because he's been frustrated for so long, carrying this guilt that he couldn't protect his wife in their own bed, which we shouldn't be the focus, but it's completely understandable for this character and for any character. I mean, I'm certain I would feel guilt if this had happened to me, but you have to measure that with taking care of the people who need to be taken care of, and Jonathan seems to be collapsing into himself instead of focusing on Mina. So Mina once again then gushes over all the men. Oh, it did me good to see the way all these brave men. I don't even want to read that. It's so annoying.
But then it's got the part about how great it is that Arthur has all the money.
Yeah, that I like. So
and Mr. Morris too. He's
wonderful power of money. So they spend it so freely. It's very nice when you're fighting the monsters that if you have rich people on your team, you're going to get a lot more done. So if Batman isn't a billionaire, if Bruce Wayne isn't a billionaire, let me tell you, Batman won't ever catch any criminals. So
we skipped over something that I'd like to point out.
Go for it.
When Van Helsing is trying to calm Jonathan down and tell him of all the stuff that he said, and he says that you have told us of their gloating lips, and it's just talking about the brides.
Mm-hmm.
You told us of their gloating lips, and you heard the ribald laugh as they clutched the moving bag. In the manuscript, that says the nursing boy. It doesn't say moving bag. It says nursing boy.
Interesting. So do you think that was changed a bit, or do you wonder if that's just a mistake on his part, and then he had to change it back when he realized, oh, it wasn't a nursing boy, it was a baby? Or is that the same thing?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing, but I think it's more ambiguous because it never says baby in the beginning, and then he changed it to moving bag because it's still ambiguous, But nursing boy is not ambiguous. You know what that is.
No, and especially in light of what's going on with all these men, how Mina's mothering them. Boy, that's not what you want to be reminded of. That they're all just baby boys themselves being nursed by Mina.
I think again that's also another leap of logic conclusion drawn by Van Helsing, because Jonathan never says a baby, let alone a boy.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm making another drink here. I'm not saying sorry that I'm also making a drink while we talk. That's my ice. Now we're at and Mina gets to have a gun. She says, I will we have all got arms, even me. Am I up there? Yeah, even me, a large bore revolver. I love that, Mina gets a gun. So these guys have come a long way now at this point. If they're even arming Mina, they've clearly moved forward a step into trusting her and giving her power, right?
If she was capable of carrying a crucifix, would they give her a gun?
So good question, because that's what she says she can't. Like, she can't carry some kind of things like they do, which we assume means, a crucifix or a host even. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder. Probably not. I would suspect no. So they and now we get to, and I'm going to share another note page in the notes because something that's coming up that you want to hit, right? Too.
Yep.
Good. They took all the courage to say goodbye. Courage, meaning the professor is looking at you keenly. His look is a warning. I like this, that Mina's like, I'm going to be strong. I'm going to show them how strong I could be. And then we get to Jonathan's journal, and he's writing in the light from the furnace door of the steam launch. And he mentions how, Arthur for years had a launch of his own, like another hobby of Arthur's, and he could just like operate a steam launch and knows all about this. But, that's what happens. Then he's talking about the Sereth River and then the Bisistria at its junction. We somewhere around the 47th degree north latitude and all. And this ties in with one of the notes, which I'm going to share, and you can talk about. Where is the page? Oh, I still have to open it, I think. Here it is. This is on that crazy dated memo page that we have, so much on. Still trying to find it here. Sorry for the wait. Oh, where is it? Here it is. And now I want to share, and it's not coming up when I try to share it. So that's not the one. Let me try this. Hold on. This is the chapter 26. And can I go forward with this? No. Let me close that. Sorry, it's like freezing up on me here. There you go. Screen sharing has been stopped, so I can do it again. And this is the note. There it is. This is the note that has here it is. All kinds of writing all over it, upside down. It's been folded. He carried it around with him a long time. He dated some of the things. We can't read some of the things on this, but we can read in this top right corner here. Up here, if you want to talk about what's going on up here in this corner, Tucker, while I grab some ice out of my ice maker in my room.
So Hans de Roos is one of my favorite Dracula scholars. If there was baseball cards, he'd be my Babe Ruth, I guess. But he is like a literary detective, and he really has too much time on his hands. And he used all the landmarks of this chapter and the next chapter, plus this note, and he was able to determine the exact location that Stoker had in mind for Dracula's castle. It is, so he reads that as between Straja and Israel is 37. Stoker has east longitude, 2534 north latitude. He's actually got that reversed. It should be north latitude and east longitude. But he found that if you draw a straight line from Straja straight through that coordinate and continue it, it goes to Mount Isbarol, which is a dormant volcano. And as if you remember the manuscript, in the manuscript, the castle blows up at the end.
Yeah, that'll come into play in the next chapter. We'll talk about that. And is that only if you reverse those coordinates? Like if you do 25?
But if you read the chapter, Stoker realized he had a mistake, and Jonathan says it's 47 north latitude.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's different than what he's written here. Yeah.
Yeah, so Stoker knew that he made a mistake, and he corrected it in the book. But it's about a 10-page essay that he has on it, and it is very, very convincing. And the fact that Isbarol is a dormant volcano makes perfect sense when you read the manuscript.
So this is a clue as to what he did have planned, but then changed.
In David Stoker's presentation, he touches on this. He oversimplifies a little bit, and I think he kind of implies that that coordinate is the exact location, but it is not the exact location, but it gets you there.
And this is another one of those notes where he had written it and it had faded over time, but he thought it was important enough to write over it again.
Yes, and
faded, and then he's rewritten it.
And de Roos actually has a magnified version of it, and Stoker's mistake is in the rewriting of it. He actually has it correct the first time.
Like here, it's
yeah.
I don't know.
The only problem with DeRuse's article is that he misnamed the Rosenbach and calls it the Rosenberg.
I laugh. It doesn't bother me.
But the Roos is the one who discovered that the Icelandic version was different. It wasn't just an adaptation.
Yeah.
And he also has, within the same essay about the location, he comes up with evidence that Stoker was basing Dracula on somebody other than Vlad. I forget, Michael the Brave, I believe it was.
I don't know that one. Brian Toothpick is asking about the death head moth thing that's also in that note. We did talk about that in a previous episode, and ask me that tomorrow night on Drac Chat, because I don't want to go over that because it's not in this chat. It's just something that's mentioned in the book that Renfield sees one of those death head moths and describes it to the vampire hunters. This is all before he's dead, and there it is in the note that Stoker had written down the name of it, and that's what he used in that chapter long ago. So this is where they're heading then, and he's got it in the notes, and it's certainly Elizabeth Fuller, our librarian, says that DeRusse is one of the few big Dracula scholars who hasn't been to the Rosenbach to see.
Because he doesn't know the name, he can't find it.
He keeps looking up, where the heck is this Rosenberg? So I shouldn't do that, because maybe he'll watch the show one of these days. He'll be like, what, are they making fun of me? I don't mean to make fun, but clearly you're welcome to come to the Rosenbach at any time, and we will show those notes to you. So but for some scholars, I mean, if you can't come, that's one of the great joys of having the facsimile that you can look at. So I'm glad that the drafts is out there now, that people can really look at these things, because not anybody can make it in to see. So that's why the manuscript, the typescript out in Seattle needs to be published, so we can all look at it. My only comfort is that we are in the hands of God, Jonathan says. Only for that faith it would be easier to die than to live, and so be quit of all the trouble. This is like Jonathan's having a little Hamlet moment here, isn't he? It's like, that I'm just, if I didn't have faith in God, I would just, that's the only reason that it's easier to live. Otherwise, I'd just die. Quit no more. End this. And then, so he's still in despair a bit. And then he mentions one of the saddles on the horses for the guys on has a horn, a movable horn, easily adapted for Mina. Just another little detail that Stoker throws in there. Like, it's completely unnecessary for us to know that. And he's just showing that this is if they think Mina might need a horse, well, they better make sure she can ride one, because she can't ride it, astride the horse. She's gonna have to ride side saddle. She's a lady. And so they've got a saddle adapted for her. I love this. Quote here at the end of this journal entry for him. It is a wild adventure we are on. Here, as we are rushing along through the darkness, with the cold from the river seeming to rise up and strike us, with all the mysterious voices of the night around us, it all comes home. We seem to be drifting into unknown places and unknown ways, into a whole world of dark and dreadful things. It's a great little passage, and it's Jonathan's moving away from the point of despair to now that he's at this kind of very introspective kind of Hamlet looking at the world, and he sees it's dark and mysterious and strange. He doesn't know if he has the strength to face it, but he's going on. Anastasia wrote to me, and she said she wrote that she thought this passage was a lot like Heart of Darkness. That it reminded her of that journey down the river, or that description, just that little description sounds like almost like the journey of Marlowe down the river to find Kurtz into the jungle. It doesn't sound like that so much to me, but I love the idea of that, thinking about Conrad's novel about this, colonialist endeavor to conquer a land and the kind of evil that happens because of it, to everyone, evil that happens to everyone, is interesting in light of this novel, especially with Heart of Darkness being published in 1899. I mean, I wonder if there's, I would love to read some Conrad Stoker comparisons about the way they both approach, this idea of colonization and invasion, and the way natives are treated by people who come into a place. I don't know of any. Have you ever encountered any? I haven't encountered any.
Well, and I believe it or not, I've never read Heart of Darkness. So.
And it would seem right to put them together, especially considering the time they're writing. And they do write about similar subjects. And the Rosenbach has a great connection with Joseph Conrad. We have 2/3 of all Joseph Conrad's manuscripts at the Rosenbach. They were all bought in the same auction in which Dr. Rosenbach acquired the Joyce manuscript of Ulysses. The same person that represented Joyce also represented Conrad, and Dr. Rosenbach bought all the Conrad. We don't have the Heart of Darkness manuscript. That's one of the ones we don't have, but we have about 2/3 of all the others. So we have a massive Conrad collection, and I would love to see those get compared. Just to remind everybody, it is 4:17, but we're going to finish this chapter. We got 2 weeks to go on this book. There's no reason to cut any of these short. So I'm sorry if you can't stay on for the whole time, but clearly this will be posted online. It'll already be on Facebook, and we'll have it posted on our site. So if you have to leave early and then catch the end at another time, that is fine. But I don't want to cut short anything for these last 2 chapters. So they're on, and now we're on Halloween. This is where they were on Halloween, on 31 October, still hurrying along. I love that they're past a few open boats and they shine their light on them, and the other guys on the boats get scared and they get down and start praying like witchcraft. And this is all just like Jonathan again. It's just when Jonathan comes in, he's nothing but superstitious peasants and their beliefs and
it's electric lamps again.
What's that?
It's electric lamps again.
Yeah. And, and it's technology, and they find technology to be, mysterious and scary. And our hunters here know that it is very, it's good, and you can use it to, to conquer evil. So they scare them. They're hot on the trail. Hey, this is today, November 1st, evening. We have overhauled every boat, big and little. They stop every boat on the river, and everybody thinks that they must be a government crew, and that's why they are. That's why they help them. We don't mention how Jonathan and Arthur must know Romanian or any other languages, but apparently they do. And then they get a Romanian flag, which I think is hilarious. So we can now fly conspicuously. So everybody's going to be like, whoa, yes, what do we do for you? Because they think that they're an official boat. And they do find out that a big boat passed going at more than usual speed, and she had a double crew on board. So they are on the right track. And then the next day, there's when Jonathan finally really wakes up. He's, gone through this ordeal, despair, then examining, thinking about it. And now he says he wakes up, and I am a new man this morning. And as I sit here and watch him sleeping, meaning Arthur, I can do all that is necessary, both as to minding the engine, steering, and keeping watch. I can feel that my strength and energy are coming back to me. It's like all I needed to do is to be working at pursuing, right? Like it's all the waiting time and sitting on a train and then sitting in the hotel and waiting for word. That's been killing him. Now that Jonathan can get to work and really do something, like shovel coal and steer this, steam launch, that now he feels alive again, and that he's active in pursuing Dracula, and he's lost the despair, which is important.
I think it also helps that Arthur let him oversleep.
He got a little extra sleep. That's all he needed. He needed a Snickers. He was running a little hangry there, and he needed a Snickers. So now we switch again. We switch right to Dr. Seward's diary, and it's a short entry, and then we'll switch to Mina's diary, and it's just not a long entry. So it's this propelling the plot forward here with multiple voices and a kind of quick pace to get everything moving along. And we're almost done. It's because all Seward says first, he says no time to write. Well, yeah, you're riding on a horse. You can't like ride a horse and write my journal. So he's got to wait till he stopped to do that. They heard that there's snow coming, so we have to get a sledge and go on Russian fashion if that happens. So they're like thinking ahead, and they're thinking to be prepared. They're gonna finish this no matter what. And then he find out that the steam launch that Jonathan and Arthur was on was detained. It had an accident, but it got fixed. They learned this all from other Slovak boats or other peasants. The peasantry tell us from other people that this happened. So, and now we got Mina in the last entry for this chapter. It's Halloween. This is how Mina spent her Halloween. The professor could hardly hypnotize me at all, and all I could say was dark and quiet. And then she goes off into this like great description. The country is lovely and most interesting. If only we were under different conditions. Wouldn't it be delightful if Jonathan and I could see this driving alone and learn something of the people and their life? It's all color and picturesque. Wow, beautiful country and quaint people. She's on a little adventure here. A little jaunt in the country. I love that.
Didn't she say something similar when she went to pick him up at the convent?
I can't remember. She may have. So
either she said it or Jonathan said it when he was on his trip.
I'm telling you, she's got it together. Jonathan was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I'm gonna die. Oh, maybe I would die if I didn't have faith. And what are we gonna do?" And Mina's like, "This is a lovely country, actually. I wish we weren't dealing with this Dracula business." Very British too of her, isn't it? That's the next book. The next book is Mina and Jonathan's travel log of Transylvania.
If she just let the turn happen, she could live there undead permanently.
She could, yes. You could be there always, Mina. She talks about Van Helsing is stocked in with provisions, fur coats, and wraps because it's going to get cold. And then she finishes off the chapter with a prayer, which I think is very interesting, because this whole last quarter of the book has turned into a holy crusade anyway. And Jonathan has said that it's his strength in God and his faith that's been able to keep him going. Although then he demonstrates that he's still at the point of despair with that faith, and it's actually working and doing things that actually finally brings him out of it. But Mina says, "We shall soon be off. I am afraid to think what may happen to us." And here's kind of the prayer that she says: "We are truly in the hands of God. He alone knows what may be. And I pray him with all the strength of my sad and humble soul that he will watch over my beloved husband, that whatever may happen, Jonathan may know that I loved him and honored him more than I can say, and that my latest and truest thought will always be for him." And that's a little note of doom too, a little of, she doesn't know if she's going to survive. We don't know. The first time reader doesn't know if Mina's going to survive this last chapter. Maybe Dracula's just going to get away with it all. So maybe they'll all die. Dracula will be cackling at the end from the battlements of his castle. Victory will be his. So, that's probably not how it's going to end, but we won't talk about that now. So, any last notes for this chapter? Did we hit everything you wanted to hit?
I think so.
Well,
I really, you just saying that, I really wish I could Eternal Sunshine this novel and read it for the first time again. It's so good.
Yep. That would be awesome to read this again. It would be awesome to read everything for the first time again. For Frankenstein, the first time. Like if I could be going into this venture, and I'm certain there'll be people watching Frankenstein who have never read it.
This is going to be close enough to my first time.
And good. So
it's been a little bit.
People will be pleasantly surprised at how rich and interesting Frankenstein is, and how completely unlike any adaptation that has been made. Branagh did, use a lot of it, but of course he just completely goes off the rails whenever he wants, because he can do whatever he wants. And,
that might be the last time I read it in its entirety, was when that movie came out.
All righty. Well, it'll be fun. And I want to thank you, not just for today, for all your appearances on the show, all the great music, all the emails with me and helping organize things, doing everything. It has been a absolute pleasure working with you on this project.
It's been a pleasure for me too, and I hope we can do something else again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to, and I'm glad I thought to invite you on this too. And I know this was kind of out of your box. Like what you usually like to do is be behind scenes, and I love bringing you out too.
Well, I think I suffer from stage fright, so I think the Zoom really helped with that. I think if it was a live thing, I would have had a really hard time with it.
Yeah, the Zoom is helpful for that. I found that too. So I actually have stage fright, and I actually get hit often when I have to live perform. And I even almost walked away. I left the performance once before it started. I got in my car and split, and I'm like, I'm not going back. This wasn't at Rosenbach, it was something else. I'm like, I'm not going back. I'm not doing this. And I came home, and I'm telling my wife, she's like, go back. Like, are you crazy? You can't just leave. And I was like freaking out, and I had to go back and do it. And I did. But I always have that moment before a performance.
That really surprises me about you, because you're really a natural.
I have that before a performance all the time. So, but this has been a sheer pleasure doing all this. And part of that is you and the other co-hosts and the audience. And this has been so great. So, and you've got music for us for Sundays with Frankenstein, our new biblio venture. So that's great. So
and if you need more, I'll see what I can do. So
you'll be back on November 15th for the after show.
I'm really looking forward to that, because I've never met anybody. I met Josh Hitchens once in 2011 for about 5 minutes.
That would be great having you all on the show together. I will love that. Thanks to Steve for being the chat Renfield for so many long weeks now. Thanks to Superwife for being on the show today to talk about Orson Welles' Dracula. I loved having her input on that. I always get my wife's input on acting and productions and things like that. She was a professional actress. That's what actually she thought she was going to do for the rest of her life when she got into it early on. And then she moved into other jobs and endeavors and having lots of children. But she always approaches things from an actor's point of view too. So I always appreciate her input. So Dracuphiles, thanks for tuning in today. We'll post this recording on our website. And maybe that's how you're watching it now. If so, thank you. Well, of course, we have a Sundays with Dracula Facebook group. If you're new to this, go over there and join in the conversation that we have. Look us up on Facebook. I'm always available to answer questions via email, edepettit@rosenbach.org. Send me an email. I encourage you all, if you're going to drink, then try some spirits from Tamworth Distilling and Art in the Age. I love this Eau de Musk. Actually, the second one tasted even better. So I was, I'm loving this drink with Eau de Musk. So thank you, Beavers, for your castorium. Don't forget to join me tomorrow night for Monday Drac Chat, when Dracuphile Brian Toothpickings joins me. Remember to register for Drac Chat ahead of time. Members in Dracula Club only, and we have lots more in the Dracula Club now that can do that. So if you're new to the Dracula Club and you haven't registered for it yet, you can go to the Rosenbach webpage for Dracula Club. You'll see a link for the Drac Chat. If you don't have it, just send me an email and ask me, or ask me on Facebook. I will direct you to where to register for Monday Drac Chat. You are the only ones that can watch it. Members in Drac Chat. It's we only put it on Zoom. live at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. I hope nobody missed the show by an hour today overseas, not realizing we had changed our clocks here in America. I think Britain changed. They changed already. I think they changed this past week, but we changed last night. I needed the extra hour to prepare for today too, let me tell you. There will be no posts. We won't post Monday Drac Chat online afterwards, so you can only watch it live. Next week, chapter 27, we will have Sir Christopher Frayling here with me. That's crazy, isn't it, Tucker?
That is exciting.
I'm here with Sir Christopher Frayling. I'm just going to go solo and just go with, because I have Christopher Frayling, and I'll just ask him to talk as much as possible. Just me and a knight will be here next week, everyone.
I might place him above the Hans de Roos.
He's pretty awesome. He would be mine, definitely. If you're looking for more virtual, unless it's Les Klinger, and like Les, I love you if he sees this show. If you're looking for more virtual engagement, head on over to the Rosenbach website and check out the other virtual offerings we have. If you donate to receive I spend my Sundays with Dracula sticker, which are really awesome, I would be more grateful than all the men in this novel when Mina takes charge again, because they really do need her. Join us next week for chapter 27, when the pursuit of Dracula comes to its rousing conclusion. Will they succeed? Will they catch him in time? You will have to tune in next week to find out, or just read the last chapter and you'll find out. There you go. Once again, will be played out by Tucker Christine's Pleated Gazelle song, Storm into Whitby. Farewell, everyone. And in the words of our friend Dracula, go safely and leave something of the happiness you bring. Thanks, guys.
Bye, Ed.
Bye-bye.